Katherine Black Reacts, Coronation Street, part 9. So, Bernie has been on her bender. She's grieving Billy and she's not coping. She's really not coping well. She's putting on a brave face, but it all became too much for her and she had a massive meltdown. Ended up with a stranger in a hotel room. Nothing happened, luckily. She could have been in big trouble, but she wasn't. She left him, went to a club and was taken by ambulance after becoming unconscious in the club and throwing up and all the rest of it. Spends the night in hospital. We open part 9 with her coming out of hospital looking very sheepish. Dev and the family are at home absolutely worried sick about her. She's been out all night, she hasn't answered any texts and they're beside themselves. They're really worried. So we're going back to the Theo and Todd story, which I love because I think it's done very well. And being familiar with some people who've suffered abuse, I've had friends that have been through some really hard times, and I think this story is done so well. To anybody that hasn't, it might seem over the top, but having spoken to people in similar situations, the control is absolutely spot on as far as I can tell. So Todd comes in and he finds Theo in the kitchen with a face like thunder, opening his mail. Blatantly opening his mail, not even trying to hide it, making no attempt, oh sorry, I opened this by mistake. Nah, he's there opening his mail quite openly. It's a credit card bill for £7,000. He's quite calm. He doesn't fly into one of his rages, but he says, we're going to have to deal with our finances. Let's open a joint account. Todd's not keen on the idea, but he sort of ums and ahs and goes to work. We cut to Gemma in the cafe, and the whole family are out looking for Bernie. Where's Bernie? What's happened to Bernie? And Ryan calls Gemma over and he says, look, I don't want to cause trouble, but I think I know where your mum was last night. Now that opens a moral dilemma. In that situation, Ryan was the receptionist in the hotel that night. He, had the noise complaints and went up and saw Bernie on the bed, not in the bed, on the bed with this man. What would you do? If you were in a work situation and you saw something like that, somebody with somebody they shouldn't have been with, and the next morning they haven't turned up and the whole family are out looking for them, would you tell? Would you tell the family? I don't think I would, because for me it had come under the guise of confidentiality. What goes on in a hotel stays in a hotel. Now, if it was a friend, if it was a close friend and their husband had gone missing overnight and I was working in a hotel and the husband had been there with another woman regardless of whether something happened or not, or vice versa, a husband was a friend and the wife was, then I would tell, I think. Interesting. I don't know. What's your take on it? In that situation, if you worked in a place of work and you saw somebody behaving in a way that they shouldn't be, they went AWOL, the family are worried, would you tell the family? So, Mal makes an appearance, and here we go again. It turns out that Mal lives in Inverness. He was with his wife Alice, living with Alice in Inverness, right up at the top of Scotland, 300 miles away. And Roy was writing to Alice as a pen friend. Things were getting a little bit romantic and he was going to meet her, but something came up and he didn't go to meet her. Mal bursts in and punches Roy. Roy forgives him, and Mal forgives Roy, but things are left on an unpleasant note. Then Mal goes off, drinks his sorrows away, takes some drugs, meets Bernie, spends the part of the night in the hotel. They don't have no teas, but Mal does try it on with her. So Mal appears in the cafe. Fine, okay, he's still hanging about. The next bit, we've gone to Mars again in a rocket ship. It just doesn't make sense. This guy lives in Inverness. He's an electrician. He's come to confront Roy for having an affair, as he thinks, with his wife. While he's in Weatherfield, he signs up with some electrician company, or maybe he's already a part of the electrical company in Inverness and it's nationwide. But come on, he takes a job fixing the electrics in the cafe. All the electricians in all the world, there must be what, 1 million electricians in England, Ireland, Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales and Scotland and England. And Roy just happens to get that one, and that one just happens to come back to the cafe to do the electrics. Yeah, rubbish. Anyway, that's what happens. Roy feels guilty for splitting up his marriage and offers to pay Mal in advance for the work that needs doing. Gemma confronts Bernie, and Bernie says, look, I went off the rails, I had a night, I got drunk, I took a tablet, a pill, a drug, ecstasy or whatever. I'm not proud of it. I was in a hotel room with a man, but nothing happened. That's the end of it. I'm not coping. She said, most of the time I cope okay, and then I have a little blip where I don't. It's left very frostily. So, after everything that Abby and Carl have done to Kevin and Debbie and everybody else, Debbie's forgiven Abby. Just like that. She's just forgiven her. Abby has blown the family apart, but she's just forgiven her. We do like Abby. I like Abby. I'm glad Abby's sticking around. But she was a bad girl. She had an affair on her husband with her husband's brother, blew the family apart. Debbie, Kevin's sister, was really angry, but she's just forgiven her. Why not? So Abby's round to say that she's worried about Kev, and Debbie's sleeping on a sleeping bag, in a sleeping bag on the floor. And she's eating a grueling diet of porridge and not very much else. And Abby said, what the heck are you doing? She said, I'm going to prison in a couple of days and I'm just preparing myself for it. Sweet. So Bernie admits that she's missing Paul. Paul is her son who had motor neuron disease and died about a year ago. Billy was Paul's partner. He's dead now, killed in the crash, and it's brought it all back for Bernie, and she's just not coping. She sees Mal and freezes, and Mal says, look, love, you know, we had a great night. You can see that he's carrying a torch for her, but she says to him, you know, last night was a mistake. Don't want to see you again. Todd comes in from work and he forgets to take his shoes off. Theo doesn't fly off the handle, but he says, you forgot to take your shoes off at the door. Little bits of control. You know, this is how they do it. They come in with just a little rule here and something that has to be done there, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we know that Theo flies off the handle and beats Todd, But on a day-to-day basis, it's the little things that mount up. So he tells him off because he hasn't taken his shoes off at the door. And then Theo demands, he's been brewing on this and stewing on it all day. He comes back to the joint account and says they're going to have a joint account, and he says, one pot for all. Let's combine our finances, one pot for all, total control over the money. In fact, he even says, I'll take control of the finances. He demands that Todd gives him his credit cards. Cuts them up. He's cut Todd off from all finance. So Theo is going to stay at his parents' house. No, he's not. He's going for the day. He's going for the day the next morning to his parents. And as he's leaving, Todd says, look, I've only got that tenner that you left me. Can I have some more money? He says, I'll be back tonight. That's enough. What do you need? And again, controllers. They'll dole out an amount of money for you every day, and you have to account for every penny of where that money's gone. And that is a common trait of domestic abuse, both male and female. I'm not saying it only happens male to female, it happens female to male as well, male to male, female to female, and all genders in between. So Theo's gone. He's cut Todd off from all finance apart from a tenner in his pocket. They go to the cafe. George and Todd go to the cafe before work. George orders a bacon butty and a coffee. Todd says, I'll just have a coffee. George goes to pay and he says, oh, I've left my wallet at work. Thanks, Todd, you sort it out. Comes to £6 for 2 coffees and a bacon butty, which is damned reasonable. I think round here you'd be looking closer to £8-9 for 2 coffees and a bacon bun. Anyway, it comes to £6 something, and that's most of Todd's money gone. So he hands it over. Later, after work, George comes round. Todd has bought 2 tins, a tin of soup and a tin of beans, and a cheap unbranded box of cornflakes. He's got no bread. I'm guessing when he goes to have the cornflakes, he'll find that he's got no milk in the fridge as well. So George comes round, he says, look, Christine and I have got to the pub, come and join us. And Todd says, nah, not tonight, mate. Theo's going to be home in a minute. I'm waiting for Theo. He can't afford to go to the pub. Of course, he gets the text from Theo saying, I'm not coming home tonight. See you tomorrow. He's not going to starve for one. Come on. I mean, they did make it seem as though it was the end of the world. He's got this tin of soup and this tin of beans and a box of dry cornflakes. It's not going to kill him for one night. From the hunger point of view, from the psychological damage point of view, it's huge. He was cut off from finance, and then he'd also been cut off from food. Basic necessity of life. So psychologically, it's hugely damaging for him. So, we end this part with Bernie going into work and bang, she's confronted with Mal again after saying she didn't want to see him. Mal says that he's working there. She introduces him to, and this is Devendra, my husband. And she tells Mal, look, I'm married, please leave me alone. He's burning a torch for her. He says, look, you're fine, honey, you know, it happened, it was a good night, let's forget it, your husband's a lucky man. We know this isn't done. We know Mal is going to and cause trouble there. Part 9. I'll be back with part 10 soon. Nice chat.